From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Dustin talks about the House Farm Bill with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Mark has a clip from the latest episode of Pods of Potential, and we have more from the recent Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship pseudorabies press conference. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, it is Cinco de Mayo here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Well, not just here, everywhere, though, Mark. It is the 5th of May, and, of course, rolling right along, planting going on, hearing a lot of tractors going. A little cooler today, but still, I think with the lack of rain, just a little bit of a shower that came through here last night, overnight, I don't think it's going to be anything that's really going to slow things down, and that sprint towards the finish line is going to continue as quickly as possible.
And we've also had some nice wind, Dustin, I say nice wind in terms of drying things out a little bit. I think that probably has helped in some instances, people that have been waiting for things to dry off just a little bit before they could get rolling at full speed. And yeah, I think the weather actually setting up decently here this week, although, as you mentioned, it is a little bit cooler here this morning, which has been a strange phenomenon this whole spring. We've had spring-like temperatures kind of at the end of spring. We started spring off with warmer temperatures that almost felt like summer at times. I mean, it has been a strange spring, and then you mix in that period where we were getting pretty consistent rainfall. It's given us a lot to, deal with here already in the early part of the planting season. And Dustin, as I look at the calendar as well, you mentioned it's Cinco de Mayo. At the middle of the month, that is the big meeting with President Trump headed to China to discuss all things trade, the war in Iran, thinking about ag trade specifically. It was interesting to hear what Greg McBride of Allendale had to say on the show yesterday, where he was a little bit fearful that soybeans will not be as much of the conversation as people might have been hoping for, might be thinking about going into that meeting, as it's going to focus maybe a little bit more, in his opinion, on the geopolitical situation and then some of those other ag trade commodities that China has kind of signaled that it is willing to talk about. But soybeans, not really as much of the equation, it doesn't seem.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question. Of course, that's where we need a lot more of the help and to get China back into the marketplace. But as we've talked about, they're big buyers of Brazilian soybeans. They've invested a lot into the infrastructure to be able to get them as cheaply as possible. Not only are they getting them with the more rail yards and stuff, but now they're working on building a rail through Brazil to the west coast of South Africa, or South America rather, and trying to get their beans without having to go through the Panama Canal. So that could speed things up even more. Let's get into the markets right now as Joe Camp of Comstock joins Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Joe Camp of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Joe, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Softer grain futures, not aggressively so. We have a rally to start the week and some turnaround so far on this Tuesday morning. Same for crude oil futures, leading the grains, the broader commodity sector higher at the start of the week. It was a lower open on Sunday for crude futures. That snapped a streak of 9 straight Sundays with crude futures going higher after the initial attacks on Iran, February 28th. That's, of course, been the trend. We didn't start higher here this week, but it quickly turned that direction as we had more skirmishes reported in the Strait of Hormuz, and that continued escalation of the conflict really supporting energy futures and linking back to the grains, whether it's the direct money flow influence across the commodities as a whole, as we mentioned, or you think about the direct ties to the processing sector, corn ethanol, soybeans with bean oil futures at new highs here. We're talking about that effect still being a big driver of the market right now.
And what's the situation right now with weather, Joe? How is that factoring into the markets?
That was something that surfaced in a bigger way late last week, and it separated in part from what we were focused on with the war influence because of what had been some developing storylines getting more touch, like the acreage shift from corn to soybeans. That's partly back related to the war when we talk about higher fertilizer costs, but also this damp, soggy start for so many areas of the Midwest had these questions lingering about ideal conditions or not for getting corn planted. Despite that, you see the crop progress scores from Monday afternoon, and they're showing we're still well ahead, particularly soybeans at a now record pace, a third of the crop planted through Sunday. That's in part going to weigh on soybeans when we still combine that with the added acreage from corn and other crops. For wheat, it's been a weather market tied to the Southern Plains drought and its effect, along with frost freeze events that we've had, winter kill from a while ago as well, showing in these deteriorated condition scores down in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. These production estimates are going to be weighed on, and the next opportunity for that will be the crop report we've got next week. The crop production update is important for giving us our next review of the winter wheat crop potential.
And how much more are we learning about the visit that's upcoming with the president visiting China, and what's going to be discussed there? Have we heard any details?
The countdown's on here into late next week. What we've heard is that it would seem to be preparations ongoing, so actual U.S. assets being moved. For example, the Secret Service preparing for this visit from the president. It would seem then that the meeting is still on as scheduled for the 14th and the 15th to close out next week. But what could get in the way of that is, of course, what we've started the conversation about, what has been the driver for so long now, this conflict in the Middle East, which is what delayed the first plan for President Trump's visit to China. And that's a risk point, certainly, for the broader market, that you would have a further delay or a cancellation of this meeting, something that would definitely show up in the soybeans. But for now, the other side of it is we're preparing to get an agreement, at least some partial addressing of agriculture that could be right back friendly for soybean export potential as well.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters now, and we are going to get you into another segment from the latest edition of Pods of Potential. You can find that whole thing underneath our podcast tab or by clicking the link at iowaagnet.com. Mark Magnuson has more right now. Mark?
Welcome into this episode of the Pods of Potential podcast. It's episode number 30, and today's topic of discussion is how conservation and ag policy overlap. And we're here with our friends at the Iowa Soybean Association today, joined by Chief Officer of Demand and Advocacy at Iowa Soybean Association, Matt Herman. Also joined by Story County farmer and ISA District 5 Director Dave Struthers, and Iowa State University Professor Mike Castellano. Also here today, we are at the farm of Dave Struthers, ISA District 5 Director. And Dave, we are located near Collins here on your farm in Story County. Could you tell me, please, what commodities do you produce on your farm? I know you have a diversified operation. What's your favorite thing to do on the farm as well?
Well, my favorite thing to do is harvest grain, run the combine and seeing the fruits of your labor. I also like to sell hogs because it's similar. It's, the end of the growth cycle, and then that's where the money comes in. But I raise soybeans and corn, hogs, and I have a small beef cow operation.
And you've been involved in the hog side pretty actively as well in some of your past roles, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I'm still on the Story County Pork Producers Board, but in 2015, I was president of the Iowa Pork Producers Association. I served on that board from 2009 to 2016.
And then Mike Castellano also joining us today, professor at Iowa State University. And Mike, a great guest to have for our conversation topic today. Again, as we're learning about how conservation and ag policy kind of overlap. Mike, could you tell us, please, are you originally from Iowa? What's your area of expertise at Iowa State? And what's your favorite thing about working in research?
Hey, Mark. Yeah, thanks for having us. I am the odd guy out. I am not from Iowa. I was born in Newark, New Jersey. My dad worked in New York City. I studied environmental science, but as I did that, I recognized that the best place to work, if you want to have a clean environment and produce food for people, is agriculture. And so with that, I did some work in Pennsylvania, Chesapeake Bay watershed. I've worked in rangelands out west, and now I'm here at Iowa State University.
And how long have you been at Iowa State?
I've been here for 16 years.
So what would you say is your favorite thing about working with Iowa State University and the role that you're in?
Yeah, no question about it. It's working with farmers on their farms. So, I understand the biology, physics, and chemistry of the system really well. The farmers understand what works. And I kind of think about our job oftentimes as listening to the challenges and opportunities from farmers, thinking about why they work, trying to help them understand how they work so we can scale them up and improve them for better productivity and environmental performance.
So once again, we're here at Dave's Farm in Story County near Collins, and we're actually in the shop here today. Great planning by Michaela and Rosie, who help with the podcast as well, as they set us up for a day that the weather wasn't quite ideal. So a nice chance to take a break here in the shop.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Tuesday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Not seeing very much change in the elevator bids today. Only 3 elevators making any sort of adjustments to their prices. Let's see where they're coming in at today. ADM Burlington, a dime under on corn, $4.73. Soybeans, 23 cents under, $11.96. Cargill Eddyville, 20 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.63. New Co-op Algona, 44 cents under on corn, $4.39. Soybeans, 72 cents under, cash bid $11.47. Ag State Sheldon, 30 cents under on corn, $4.53. Soybeans, 75 cents under, $11.44. Ag State Alta, 38 cents under on corn, $4.45. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $11.49. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 17 cents under on corn, $4.66. Soybeans, 30 cents under, cash bid $11.89. 5-Star Co-op Nashua, 35 cents under on corn, $4.48. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.49. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 29 cents under on corn, $4.54 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, 30 cents under on soybeans, their cash price $11.89. At New Co-op Red Oak, they are 37 cents under on corn, $4.46. Soybeans are 70 cents under, they're at $11.49. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 53 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.30. Soybeans, 86 cents under at $11.33. New Co-op Sheraton, 36 cents under on corn, $4.47. Soybeans, 70 cents under with a cash price of $11.49. At Walk-On Feed Rancher, 47 cents under on corn, $4.36. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.49. New Co-op Glidden, 42 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.41. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.49. Innovative Ag Farley, 47 cents under on corn, $4.36. Soybeans, 71 cents under, $11.48. And Cargill Muscatine, 20 cents under on corn, $4.63. Soybeans, 30 cents under at $11.89. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends. with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
Well, yesterday we heard from the Iowa Secretary of Agriculture, Mike Nag, at his press conference at the end of last week, talking about the pseudorabies that was found at a small commercial swine facility in central Iowa. Here is the rest of that press conference with Secretary Nag.
Program standards require that in addition to dealing with the site, that we also then conduct surveillance around the site. So there is a 5-mile radius circle that is drawn around the positive site. Swine facilities within that 5-mile radius circle will need to do testing for pseudorabies, and they'll need to do that within the next 15 days. And then there's another circle drawn around 2-mile radius around the site. And 30 days after the cleanup is finalized on the site, those sites will have to test a second time. Every producer that's in that circle has been contacted by our office, and that was done as of late in the day yesterday. So we are working very quickly to, again, comply with all the regulations and standards around this, quickly to stamp out, clean the site, and remain disease-free. I would also just note at this point that there's always a potential for trade disruption in situations like this, which is why, again, we move so swiftly, decisively to comply with the standards. This is a reportable disease. It's not a foreign animal disease, but it is a reportable disease, which means USDA has taken the steps that are required to notify trading partners. We anticipate minimal, if any, but short-term trade disruptions. We're not aware of any at this time. But of course, that is why we're moving so decisively, so quickly to be able to complete the work on the site itself and also the surveillance. Final note is I would like to stress that there is no food safety or human health concern with pseudorabies and this site in the state of Iowa. So I just want to stress that. And at this time, I would like to, Dr. Kaizen, I would like if you would just give us maybe a quick overview or a highlight of what is pseudorabies, some of the history.
Sure. Well, maybe pseudorabies is a herpes virus. So it's, if you want to make a comparison or similar in people, chickenpox and shingles. So it's a herpes virus. And the important piece here is that when you initially go through the infection with the virus, you usually clear the virus, but with the herpes virus, you never totally clear it because the virus then can hang out and hide in the body. And at some point later on, when you're stressed, that virus can come out. That's where chickenpox and shingles, that comparison, that when you get chickenpox, you could get shingles later on because the virus is there. Similar in pigs, when the pigs are exposed to pseudorabies virus, they go through a point where they're sick, they could be shedding virus and they recover. But the virus then will hang out in one of the cranial nerves in the brain and the tonsil. And if the animal's stressed later on, then they could shed that virus. We eradicated pseudorabies back, and it was around the year 2004 was the last herds. But it actually started as a program disease back in the 60s and 70s. The signs in pigs can be reproductive issues, pneumonia, but it was enough of a disease that producers collectively wanted to start a voluntary eradication program. So it started out as a voluntary program, and then as certain things happened, triggered regulatory response, and then it became a regulatory disease, but required testing, vaccination, and the United States then, as I mentioned, in 2004, actually eradicated it in the commercial pigs. Where it still does occur, though, is in feral pigs, and mostly in the southern United States, is still there, and that's what happened in this case. All indications are that a transitional herd in Texas had pigs that were raised outdoors, exposure to feral pigs, and that's how it ended up getting into the state of Iowa.
Thanks, Jeff. And one final note, and I think Don will go to questions then. And a response like this is done in coordinated fashion with USDA APHIS. And so I want to just thank our USDA partners here in the state of Iowa, working in a coordinated fashion, but also up the chain to USDA, all the way to Secretary Rollins, Undersecretary Hoskins. APHIS leadership has been tremendous. And so we appreciate the support, the collaboration. And Dr. Kaizen has been, of course, working in close collaboration with his colleagues, other state animal health officials across the country. And that's how these things work. So very routine when these events occur, that there's that kind of coordination. So I just want to make sure I show appreciation for USDA APHIS, Iowa State University Vet Diagnostic Lab, the NVSL, the USDA NVSL team in Ames, and the Iowa State College of Vet Medicine, also critically important partners, as well as the Iowa pork producers and our pork industry.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, we saw the Farm Bill make its way through the House, and now battle lines being drawn in the Senate for a possible late May or early June markup of the House Farm Bill that passed last week. AgriPulse saying that Democrats are prepping for a fight over pesticides and food assistance. Senate Ag Chair John Bozeman described the legislation as a quote-unquote good bill. So it sounds like there's solid footing going into that, but we know it's still a long way to go to get through the Senate.
Yeah, that it is. And of course, the E15 thing needs to be settled. Latest news I've got, and I'm waiting to talk with Emily Score from Growth Energy later this week. I'm hearing from them that it is a May 13th procedural vote. First, they have to strip the E15 away from the Farm Bill and then vote on it as a standalone bill before the Senate can do anything on this. So it's going to be an interesting way this plays out, and we'll see how it goes. But again, battle lines have been drawn in the Senate for quite a while, and that's going to be a long road to hoe. More Iowa Ag Matters in just a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by Brian Doherty of Total Farm Marketing. Brian, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Mark, thank you. What's happening? Well, defensive today. Corn is down anywhere from 8.5 in the nearby May, which stops trading obviously here in about 10 days, 9 days. But July corn down 7 3/4, December down 6.5. Good planting progress. We saw that on the progress numbers last night. Beans down about 10. Wheat also down. Some rain in the western regions of the wheat belt. Anywhere from 15, well, let's just call it 15 lower in both Chicago and Kansas City. Minneapolis down about a dime. So some defensive posturing today. Maybe some stop orders being triggered. Lack of new bullish news. I've got the crude oil market down over $4 a barrel. And then the last thing would be the planting progress for corn, pretty much right on, let's call it schedule. 38% complete, in line with last year and above the 5-year average of 34%. And soybeans, 33% planted, 10 percentage points above the 5-year average and above last year at 28%. So that's a really quick wrap and high flyover over the grain markets.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Cattle are rebounding. They had a rough day yesterday, but they're up about $1.20 to $2.50 with deferred months leading today's gains. Feeder cattle got pummeled yesterday, $5. They're right back up $5. So it seems like the range in feeders is just about that. Give or take $2-3 a day seems to be more the norm. which of those used to be big moves, $5 either way. The same old fundamental story: tight supply, limited inventory. Is the herd even growing or expanding? They say high prices cure high prices, but are they? There's some point where they get so high that if you're an industry that you've been in all your life and you're kind of older, do you really want to, reinvest in the next 5 years on hope? So we think the herd's contracted enough that it's just stable. It doesn't appear to be it's growing. Over time it will, but it's probably, a tight supply situation. So now it's just whether or not consumer demand can hold up. Recent economic news, despite sort of the media would telling you it's not, it's been pretty solid. So it looks like demand is holding up.
Farmers, stay on top of your local market with Basis Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every day, we bring you the latest corn and soybean cash prices from inland grain elevators and river terminals across Iowa. Get the prices you need to make the best-selling decisions, no matter where you are in the state. Basis Matters connects you to the numbers that matter most to your farm. Tune in every weekday only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and make informed grain marketing decisions with Basis Matters.
July corn down 7 3/4 at $4.78. July soybeans down 10 1/2 at $12.12 1/4. July soybean meal down 60 cents at $3.20.30. July soybean oil up 6 cents at $76.59. Chicago wheat down 14 1/2 at $6.26 1/2. Minneapolis wheat down 11 cents at $6.88. Kansas City hard red wheat down 13 1/2 at $6.81. On the Merc, June live cattle up 90 cents at $252.65. May feeder cattle up $4.55 at $371.15. May lean hogs up 20 cents at $91.83. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, we're going to jump back into that livestock markets. As we said back in segment 4, that it was a rough day yesterday for those markets. Let's see what Joe Camp of Comstock Investments has to say as he talks now with Mark Magnuson.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
A whipsaw here for cattle futures to open up the week. Just like how they closed last week, they reversed lower from new all-time highs at the end of last week, then followed through. They made a recovery attempt that ultimately failed on Monday. So far here on Tuesday, we're back higher, but off the highs. So are we going to turn around and see weight on a market that maybe now has come down far enough relative to the cash market performance? We're still seeing some early action this week at, if slightly lower, still elevated levels for sure. We know about the seasonal trend and thinking about more beef coming into the Memorial Day holiday, and that's a conflicting back and forth type of effect that's going on right now in the cattle trade. The hogs are trying to recover after having been down to new lows for the move, falling under support at 100 for the June contract we're watching.
And Joe, as we think going forward, what do you think is going to be the big market movers for the cattle side of the market that we need to keep an eye on? Is there any news story out there that is something we need to have circled?
One thing we've got is an updated review from the government on these beef packers and what could be new regulations to come. Those would be points of headline risk for the market. Longer term, shorter term, it seems like any day still we could have news on next developments for reopening the Mexican border, currently closed for the screwworm threat. That's also something that could pop up, more cases, more negativity, and that's why it could go either way.
Joe, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
It's all on our website, comstock.com.
Joe Camp, Comstock, my guest here this morning. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Same, Mark. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
$400 bill on that full label
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune in to Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. This is the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it is time now for Dustin Huffman's conversation with Senator Joni Ernst as they discuss the Farm Bill and food safety. Here's Dustin with more information with Senator Ernst.
All right, we're out in Washington, D.C., Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. We're talking with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst right now. Senator, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule.
It's great to be with you, Dustin. Thank you.
All right, so big week here in Washington for ag broadcasters to be out here. I know the House is hopefully going to be voting on a farm bill and possibly a standalone E15 bill here. In fact, they're voting on the rules as we're talking right now. How excited are you to at least see that happening, at least on their side of the chamber?
I am very excited. And thanks to each one of our Iowa delegation members, they have engaged heavily on this issue. We need a farm bill. Our farmers want to see that. It's important that we deliver. So I'm thankful that the House is bringing this forward. It has been slow going in the Senate.
Now, I know the situation is they were trying to put an E15 amendment on it, but now they've had to make it into a standalone because of some budget office concerns. We were talking with a few of your colleagues on the Senate Ag Committee here earlier this morning, and they were talking about how it's going to be an interesting situation for you guys to be able to get it through as well, to get to that 60-vote threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. And this will be a tough one because there are a lot of different divisions now that are happening that when I was here, when I came to the Senate 12 years ago, that we didn't have. Everybody tried to work very well together. Unfortunately, there is a greater and greater divide between the rural and urban states. So this will be very, very difficult as we try and fix Proposition 12 from California, if we try and do E15 year round, any of those measures makes it more and more difficult.
And from what you've been hearing from Senator Boozman, I mean, what's his timetable for trying to get this thing moving?
Well, we haven't heard a lot coming out of Chairman Boozman right now, but what we have heard is directly from the president that he wants a farm bill done now. So that does put a little pressure on both of our chairmen. We're glad to see the House acting on this. We'll take up what the House sends to us, and hopefully Chairman Boozman will push as hard as he can to get this done very soon.
And then moving on, Iowa is going to be a new home for a food safety center from USDA. So you want to tell us a little about what that's all about?
Absolutely. And I have pushed very hard, again, over the past decade or so to get the headquarters of different agencies out of Washington, D.C. I have the Drain the Swamp Act, and I've got the Swamp Act, and those move various departments out closer to the constituencies that they serve. Well, we're actually seeing the administration move on this even without having that legislation, especially when it comes to the USDA. And Secretary Rollins has announced that the Food Safety Office will be located in Urbandale, Iowa. This is a huge step for us, and we're really grateful. It just makes sense to have it in Iowa. We also see 4 other projects now that have been named coming out of USDA and will be located in Ames, Iowa. So again, she's really practicing what we all preach, and that's making sure that these departments that represent rural America are actually located in rural America.
And why is it so important to have that located in Urbandale, that food safety inspection office?
Well, again, food safety really centers out from Iowa farm country. We have agriculture, whether it is animal husbandry and the meats we produce, or whether it is poultry and the eggs we produce in Iowa, all the way up to corn and soy that goes into our food systems. So it's really important that we have that food safety office there, again, because we are the heart of our food system right in Iowa. So it makes perfect sense to locate those officials in Urbandale.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Iowa Ag Matters. You can find the full podcast episodes of the show on our website at iowaagnet.com. Just click on the podcast tab. Thank you to Riley. Thank you to Dustin. I'm Mark Magnuson. You've been listening to Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Have a great Tuesday.